In the last video, we created two different alerts. We created a very general type of alert where we created our own query to query against our own index. And then we created another rule that uses the security detection rules that comes with Elasticsearch. In this video, what we will do is we will assign an action to each of these rules such that if an alert happens, we will have an alternative way of being notified that an alert actually happened. So specifically, what we're going to do is as soon as we're going to create an action to each one of these rules. And when an alert happens, that action will log the alert to a new Elasticsearch index. Then we will set up Logstash to consume the alerts from our index and forward those alerts to our email. So that's what we will try to do in this episode. Before we begin, I want to say that if you find these videos helpful, you can support us by pressing like on our videos and subscribing to our channel. If you run into issues following this video, you can leave a comment below. If your issue is more complex, then it is better to send us an email through our website. That way we can exchange emails, exchange logs for troubleshooting, or even set up a virtual meeting to resolve the issues together. All right, let's get started. So let's start with this general rule that we made. If we click on Edit and we scroll down, you'll remember that in our last video, we did not configure the actions. There's a lot of different actions here, and if you have one of the paid versions of Elasticsearch, then you can enable all these other connection types, especially the email one, because if you have the email one, you can just email the alert to yourself directly, or if you have the Jira, if you're using Jira, you can message the alert to your Jira system directly. But because we're using the community version of the Elastic Stack, we don't have these options, but there's still a way to get the alert into our email by putting it into an index, and then we will use Logstash to read from the index and forward the messages to our email system. So if we're gonna add an alert to our index, just click on this first. And when you do that, first thing it's gonna ask for is creating a connector, which then kind of reminds me, we need to actually set up our Elasticsearch index first before we try to configure these actions. So to set up the index, you're gonna need to ask yourself, what information about the alert do I want to store? You're gonna find there's many different pieces of information that you can store or that you can capture from an alert. I'll demonstrate that later, but just to kind of make things a little bit easier to understand, let me demonstrate, or let me pull up the mapping of an index that I would suggest. So give me a moment. So I'm back on the Elasticsearch server, and within the ES scripts mappings directory, I recommend that we use a mapping that looks like this, alerts general. So let's maybe record what type of alert is it. Is it an outdated WordPress plugin alert, or is it a clam scan antivirus alert? You know, we get to decide what value to put here. So I'm gonna set that as keyword. The hits is basically going to be, I would describe it as when you run the query for a rule, if you get more than one record coming back, we consider that rule as true and an alert fires. Because that rule actually returns results, I want to capture every one of those results and store them in here. It's going to be stored as an array of JSON objects. This gives us an opportunity to explode or expand or inflate the results in our email, and we can actually look at what specifically triggered the alert in our email. The query is actually the query that we defined in our rule, so that would be this over here. And condition, I can't quite remember if I need this. We'll have to take a look a little bit later when I actually go ahead and create the message. Link is so that in our email, I want to be able to click on a link that takes me straight to Kibana to review the results. The name, I believe that would just be this name up here. The rule date, basically when this rule was fired. Context date would be when So there could be a delay between the time the rule fires and when you've actually noted that there was an outdated plugin. So that's the difference between these two dates. The value, I can't quite remember what that's for. It might be just some extra information. I think we'll know when we actually set up the message. But this is the index mapping that I recommend. And we could manually create this right now under Dev Tools. So if we go to Dev Tools over here, and let's create that index. I'm going to call it, it's up to us what we want to call it. I'm just going to call it Alerts General because some of the tools I create later on, I just want to be consistent and use this name. Okay, Alerts General. Let's create that index. And now let's create the map. Whoops. Let's create the mapping for that index. It's letting me. I just want to press line. I want a line break. Line break. There we go. Okay. So let's create another one, or create. Let's put in the mapping like this. Mapping. Oops, this one, and press play. There we go. So now if we actually go to our index management, click here, we have an index available that uses the mappings that we expect. Now I think we are ready to create the connector. I'm going to press refresh just in case, because I noticed that sometimes the browser may cache certain details about our Elasticsearch, and it may not reflect the latest changes when it comes to creating indices and such. I'm just going to press refresh, and now I'm going to press edit. And now let's go to actions, click index. Okay, so to connect to our index, we need a connector, and I'll just do this. I'll call it anything I want. I'll just say alerts or general. Yeah, alerts general. The index we want to connect to is alerts general. General. Okay, so normally it should autocomplete, but it doesn't. I think it should still be fine. What's this? Yeah, this. Okay, there we go. Define timestamp for, I believe we already have it, so I don't think we need to do that. All right, so what we're going to do is, let's see, for each alert, all right, we want anytime we get any kind of alert on each check interval. So every time this 15 minutes, if the query is true, I'm just going to log it. Okay, and yes, when query matched. If alert matches a query, if alert is generated, yeah, I think we can leave these as is. Now the question is, what do we actually want to put into our index? We want to put something that matches this mapping that we have here. And we could do something like this. Like I could manually create it right now, alert type. And this is something I want to define myself. So the alert type for this, I will say outdated plugins. Okay. Other information I want in here, whoops, could be, let's say, hits. Now for this, for the hits, I want whatever is returned by this query here. So it could be up to 100. All this stuff I want to throw in here. And to do that, you can click on this plus icon here, which is add variable, and you can see all the variables that are available to you. So I want context.hits like that, right? And I believe I can just put a square bracket around here, because what we're saying is this is a string field or keyword field. So I'm gonna just put square brackets around it. It's gonna be a JSON string, and later in Logstash, we will convert this to an actual JSON object. Okay, so basically that's how you go field by field to create this. And then when you actually press save down here, next time an alert fires, your index will be populated. Now, I don't want to risk having any typing mistakes. So I'm going to take the template that I've already created in advance, which I believe is over here. Yes, okay, so I'm gonna take this that I've already created, that I know will work, and we will paste it in here, like that. Okay, you can see that every single one of these fields that are using these mustache variable template notation, they're all available under here. Okay, so there's, for example, a rule.name, right? There's a rule.url, and et cetera, et cetera. So I will leave it. You can customize this message further. Just make sure that it reflects the mapping that you've defined in your index here. So what we will do now is we just simply press save. And hopefully there are no errors. Okay, good. So now, next time we fire this rule, and if an alert actually exists, we should get one record in this index. So let's hit reload for a moment. Okay, so it's empty right now. If I go to dev consoles, and let's do a search, alerts, everything should be empty at this point. Okay, so what we will do then is, even if we were to run this rule, I believe it should be, it won't generate a new alert because it's been, actually it would. Actually, let me think about that. Our plugin is throttled to 12 hours. So even if I were to run this, I don't believe any new alerts would occur unless I remove that throttle. So yeah, let's test this out. I don't believe any new alerts would show up here. Let's hit refresh. Okay, nothing. And if I were to do a search, I don't expect anything to come through yet. Okay, good. Nothing came through yet. So let's remove the ping file on our WordPress server. So let's go back here. This is our WordPress 1 server. And what I can do is rf hyphen var www. It could be any server. I think they all have out-of-date plugins. Ever might remove the last ping. And in a minute or so, I believe there should be something new. And then I will run, where is it? I'll go ahead, not this one, this one. So in a few minutes, I'm gonna press rerun this rule. I'll run this rule again because I think uptime takes a minute or so. Let's just check for a moment. Uptime. Where's my uptime? Here it is. This is scheduled to check every minute, right? So this is going to be pinged every minute. And once it's pinged, then we run this rule and we should get an alert. So I'll wait a moment. Okay, I waited another 30 seconds. And when I pressed refresh, it looked like this fired. And if I were to go to DevTools, now if I search my alerts index, we see we have one record here. And you can see that it happened on this URL, on this host, and I list the plugins. So basically, whatever came back from this query here, all this information is now available in this over here. And I will use Logstash later to parse this out and make a nice HTML email for that. So let's see, what's next? We've demonstrated that we can collect email alerts. We've demonstrated we can collect collect alerts inside an index. Let me see what I should do next at this point. I think what I'll do next is maybe we will add an action to this rule as well, so that we collect all our emails in an index, or collect all our alerts in an index first, and then we'll configure the emails as the last step. So let's add an action to this one as well. I'm going to edit. Oh, sometimes you can't edit it from here, but you can edit it from this page over here. So now if I hit edit rule settings, we go to actions, and here again, we can create the index. Now I don't want to put these SIEM alert to the same index, I think that the schema or some of the properties that are available to you for detection rules are slightly different from the regular rules. In fact, if you were to click here, some of these fields here are going to be a little bit different from the fields that we have available through here. And because of that, I think it warrants for us to set up a slightly different index. And I do have the mapping for that. So I'm going to go back to my Elasticsearch over here, and let's clear this. This is the mapping we'll use for this other index, alerts SIEM.json. I'm going to copy this mapping. You can see it's got some things that are similar, like the rule date and the query and the alert type, but the context alert is basically the same as, or it's analogous to the hits, I believe. We'll see in a moment. Let's just kind of put this together. I'm going to go back over here and let's make a new index. I'll call this alerts. What do we call it? SIEM. Okay, it could really be called anything you want. I just want to be consistent because some of my tools later on reference these names. All right, so then I'll do SIEM over here. And let's put in our new mapping like this. All right, so that should be there. If I hit reload, I should have this index that's completely empty. Now let's do a search on that. Okay, good, nice and empty. Now let's just hit refresh on this page for a moment to make sure nothing about the indices are cached. Go to actions, index, let's make a new connector, alerts SIEM. Yeah, it could be called anything really. And we will call this alerts SIEM, this one. Press save. And now we could manually construct the template here, but just to avoid any typing mistakes, I already have it over here. This is the template or the content that we're going to put into our index. Okay, so as you can see, whoops. All right, so the alert type, I'll call it host file, the name of the rule. These are all the results that come back from this query over here. All right, it's going to be as a string, which we'll use Logstash to inflate into an actual JSON object later on. Now, this is just a static message I want to include in my emails, and this query is going to be like this text box, the value in that text box is going to appear here. And I forget exactly what params are. As for the rule date, it's really when this rule fired. And I believe that should be it. We can just run, no, we'll just do it like this. Press save. And let us try to go to one of our servers. We haven't done anything with the second WordPress server yet. So maybe we will try to edit the host file here. And maybe I'll just add a new line, or maybe I'll just type test like this. Okay, in a moment, if we run this rule, let's run this rule. Where's the run? Or maybe I can do it from here. Discard changes. Yeah, let's do this one. Run the rule. I'll click in here for a moment. Okay, it looks like something fired. That should be this, right? So that should be, I believe this is the same time. Can't really tell. Or maybe it's this one. But what we can do is we can check with this search. Great. We got, we've recorded the alert in an index. Now all this information here, this is really just a lot of, you see all this text here and all this text here, and basically a bunch of meta information or description about this rule, like all this text here, that's actually what this stuff is. Much of it you can ignore. this is the part that we actually care mostly about. All right. In fact, let's take a look at this. What was this field again? This field was context alerts. Okay, yeah. So this includes a few other things, but a few other things that we could find useful. Oh, wait, let's see. Okay, and this is the query. Anyway, there's just a lot of junk that we don't need in here. I asked the Elastic team, is there a way to filter this stuff out? I never got a response back. So for now, having more information than less is fine by me. Really what I care about is just the fact that I get the alert. This is the query that was executed, and I do have some way of parsing out the results of that alert. ID, signal, category, file. Right, this is the thing that I really want to print into my email template. This is the specific message for that particular alert. Okay, so at this point, we've gotten all our alerts into an index. We're ready to move on to the step with Logstash. So we can use Logstash to consume information from these indices and send them over to our email. So let's head over there. So coming back to our Elasticsearch server, I'm going to go up to the ES directory and look at our Docker Compose. So, vi docker compose.yaml. Okay, just like our demonstration, we already have this Logstash service set up here. And I'm just pulling the Logstash image from Docker's or from Elasticsearch Docker repos or Docker image repos. And I would say that these volumes, pretty self-explanatory. To connect to Elasticsearch, we need the SSL certificates. So I'm sharing it through the volume mount over here. And these three directories are, let's say they are the bind mounted, because I need to, this conf.d will store configuration files that define how we collect information from Elasticsearch and where we're going to send all those alerts to. Right? So we'll talk about the configuration files in here. This file here, I think I just made it an empty document because I just want to override some of the default settings that came with the logstash.yaml that came with this image. Right? Some of the settings in here were conflicting with what I want to do, so I just emptied the file. Right? We'll double check this in a moment. The pipelines.yaml basically let me map one by, like, I will have multiple configuration files in this folder. This pipelines.yaml file basically just links them up to Logstash. Okay, so that's what these three mounts are. And these environment variables, I would say pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna, in these configuration files, we're gonna need to use every single one of these variables. And these variables are defined in our .env file over here. Okay, so you see all these settings here. These are our email settings that we're going to use in our Logstash configuration files. That's why they're being passed through here. And Elasticsearch connection settings up here. That's basically things like this up here, right? So I believe, yeah, so I think let's take a look at some of these. Oh, let me double check this over here. We're going to need our username and password for our SMTP server, but let me do that a little bit later. Let me define the configuration files first. So if we go up to Logstash directory, go in here and go into the conf.d directory, you see that I already have some of these configuration files made for you. So rather than handcraft it again, maybe I'll just define what it's doing. So for sending out-of-date plugins to our email, we can take a look at this file. And I would say it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see that we're going to connect to Elasticsearch. We're going to run this every, I think this is at midnight. Yeah, this is like cron tab schedule. We will run this every midnight. And then, in fact, let's change this right now, because I don't want to run this every midnight. I want to run it every minute, so we don't have to wait until midnight to get the email. So I'm going to run this every minute. These are our connection details to Elasticsearch. This is the index that we're going to read from. And what this query does, it says, look for any records in this index that have the alert type outdated plugins. So if you recall from over here, we state what the alert type is. This alerts general index. Later on, I plan to throw in a whole bunch of different alert types. CLAM antivirus alert types, if someone's installed a WordPress plugin alert type, and a whole bunch of different ones. And I'm basically using this alert type as a flag or as a filter. Okay, so for this particular Logstash configuration, I want to only pull outdated plugin alert types. I only want those alerts that were generated within the last 24 hours. So between right now, subtract up until 24 hours ago, and sort the results in descending order of rule date. So before, this was running every midnight, and that would have been fine if this runs every midnight and we search every 24 hours. If I want this to be every minute, actually a more another possible use case would be something like this. I want Logstash to send me an email every 15 minutes if there are results, in which case you want this rule to match. Maybe I'll give it another 1 minute delay so it can look back another minute, but I might do something like this. So these two are aligned because Logstash doesn't have a way of remembering whether you've already sent a result or ingested a result already, at least not with the Elasticsearch plugin. If you were using the plugin for reading files, I believe Logstash has a way of keeping track of where in the file it last ingested, but that's not the case for querying an Elasticsearch index. You need to define an intelligent schedule and an intelligent look back range, and you got to coordinate them to make sure you don't consume the same alert types over and over again, and in which case you end up getting the same email over and over again. Okay, so just to make sure we do get something, I'm gonna look look back as far as 24 hours, but I am also gonna run this every minute, and that will definitely get us some results. These are just some SSL related certificate authority things, so that's what that is. Now this filter block is completely optional, so I'm going to come back to it in a moment. Well, it's optional in the sense that I use it to make a nice email. If I didn't make a nice email, then you would just get this really big blob like this. You would get a big blob like this in your email, which isn't nice, right? So that's what this block is for, which I will explain more in a moment. But let's jump down to this output block. This output block is saying that once we get something from the input block at the top, we will print it to standard out. If the standard out is enabled, meaning if this, let me do tab new.env. Wait, where is it? Oh, up to directories or like this, yes. Nope, not here. Let's go here. Scroll to the bottom. If std out equals enabled, which it is, right? Then print to our standard out, which means it'll appear in our Docker logs. If smtp out is also enabled, which it currently is not, it's set to disabled, but if it were enabled, then we will also use the email plugin to send everything that we've done up here, or the email body will be sent over to our email, right? So that's what this output is. Now, what we can do then is just double check. Well, let's take a look at this filter now. So what this is going to do is the source. So I'm going to use this JSON plugin to take the hits field, which is a string, and convert it to a JSON object. Because if you look over here, Let's go back to alerts general. If you look over here, this over here, hits field, it's a string right now. All right, it's a string, and we're going to use a Ruby filter to write some Ruby code to construct an HTML email. And working with a string like this, it's not nice. It's going to be difficult to use regular expression or string manipulation to pluck out the information we need. So what I am doing then is I'm going to take that string and use the JSON filter to create a new field called hits.json, and this will be a JSON type of object. And once that's done, then we can use some Ruby code to format our content and construct an HTML email. Right? So here you can see I'm going to create a variable called body, empty string, and I'm just grabbing fields that come from this index over here. Right? So condition, you can see event.condition, I'll throw it in there. The link, event.getLink, that's basically this field. Right? So this field gets printed to the string. I'm going to loop through all the results. Oh, sorry, let me go back here. Hits.json, right? I know it's an array now, an array of objects now. So if it's a non-empty array, then let's start looping through it. So I loop through each result set and just print the host, the site URL, the timestamp, the plugins, the list of plugins that are out of date, along with any other information about it, right? So you can see version current is somewhere in here, probably here, right? So I'm just looping through this array and printing out all the fields into one massive string, and then I will create a new variable in Logstash called email body. So take this, now that has something, assign it to a Logstash variable called email body, and that email body is what actually gets printed in here. So that's what this configuration file will do. If we look at this one over here, right? This one over here, same idea. If we look at, let me close this for a moment. This one, SIEM.conf. Oh. So you can see here, we're looking every 10 minutes, and I'm going to query back as far as 12 minutes, but everything else is same format or same approach and philosophy as to the previous configuration file we looked at, except this time we're looking at this index, so we're querying against just a different data source. Again, context alerts is a massive string. We're going to convert it to a JSON object and then start constructing the email body. Once we've got that, we will print it to standard out if stdout is enabled, and we will forward to our email if that is enabled. Okay, so, and I forgot to mention remove field. Sometimes I don't want these things to be spewed out to standard out because it could just be hard to debug when you have too much gobbledygook in your logs. So that's why I just removed these fields from the standard out and from here. They were only needed for this intermediate development of the email body. But once the email body is created, we don't really need these fields. So I've done the same thing over here. Towards the bottom, I believe I just remove anything unnecessary so it doesn't clog up our standard out or clog up our logs. So we now have two configuration files that we're going to use. And this is where pipelines, we should update our pipelines to mention only those two for now. All right, so you know that later on when I re-import all the rules from our demonstration, we would use every other one of these fields. But for now, we only have two. So I'm going to comment this one out. We don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this. We want this. We don't need this. So we just want these two. Okay, so let's come back over here and let's go to our ES and let's enable. Okay, so we want to enable this, but before we do that, let's, you know what? I should change the schedule for the other one. Let's go back to Logstash, conf.d, Logstash conf.d SIEM. Let's run this every minute. Sure, that's fine. Okay, now let's put in our SMTP details. So I will use Mailchimp as our test SMTP server. It's free, so it's great for testing. I'll copy this username, bring it over here, paste it in there, and let's take this, paste it in here, and let's enable this. I believe that should be it. Let's go ahead and restart everything. And okay, so once this gets up and running, Logstash should be running. Now, I believe we should already get some results for the host file modified and the WordPress out-of-date WordPress plugins. If not, we'll try to trigger those rules again. All right, everything is up and running again. Let's take a quick look. Docker logs, WP Logstash. I want to see if there's any errors. Okay, no errors. Looks like things might be running. Does that mean we're getting any emails yet? Oh, okay, there we go. So we got an email for the WordPress plugins. If I click on here, it will take me to the details over here. Okay, so it's an old alert, so that's why it might not show active. And maybe I also have my time zone. Oh no, this one actually shows something, so that's good. So let's see if the host file came in. Okay, so if host file modified hasn't come in yet, let's make another edit to this. I'll just do an empty space. Let's run this rule again over, I guess my network was out for a moment, but let's go over to, let's see if I can run it from here. Nope, then maybe I can run it from here. Run rule. Yeah, I don't want to wait 5 minutes. Just run it right now, please. Hit refresh. 36. Maybe it would have been this one. Oh, there we go. All right, we got the email. And you can see it was edited on these machines at these times. Click here for more details. All right. And I believe if we scroll down, you can see the information here. At this point, I want to demonstrate how to export these rules so that you can save them as JSON files. And once they're in a JSON file format, you can actually put them as part of your Git version control or distribute the source code on how to recreate these rules with your other colleagues. Once I've exported these rules, then I'm going to tear down everything we've done when it comes to things like setting up rules, setting up connectors, setting up data views, and other resources. Because once I've torn it down, then I want to run this setup step 2.x.sh, which basically repeats and redoes or automatically redoes basically everything we've done from these steps and forward. Okay, so anything related to creating things like data views, alerts, dashboards, connectors, and rules and anything like that, the step 2.x over here, this will automate for us because through every single one of our episodes, we've been exporting things as JSON objects. Now this one shell script can re-import everything. And when we have re-imported everything, then we're going to see all the rules and not just these two rules I've made. We will see all the rules, and I'll just quickly go through the definition of each rule by inspecting it. So let's go ahead and export these two rules. Now, these two rules depend on a few things. It will depend on the connectors because we need a connector to pass the alerts to the index. We're going to need the data views, and we actually need the index that these populate themselves. Now, we've already programmatically saved the mappings for the index. So let me just go here. We already have the mappings for these in our shell scripts in our bash scripts in this directory over here. Yes, scripts, mappings. Okay, these were I just created for you. They were handcrafted, so we don't need to export those. The data views we also have. So the data view for each one of these, we've exported those in previous episodes, so we don't have to re-export those ones. So all we need to do then is just export the connectors and export the rules themselves. So let's go here. Let's export the connectors first because they are, let's say, they're the dependencies for these rules. To export them, I will go to saved objects. Okay, so the connectors are actually a saved object type, and we can get the ID by just clicking here, and here's the ID, which you can also grab from the URL over there. But I like to export it with my own shell scripts. So if we take this, copy this, and if we go to over here, and I'll just clear the screen, you can see I have a saved objects export, and we have to pass in the ID that we just copied and what type of saved object, and the type of saved object we're looking for is action, because action will be used for connector. So this is kind of described, or it is described in the Elastic documentation. It was just very hard to read through all documentation to figure out exactly what the object types are. So I've listed them for you here. So we can go ahead and just go saved objects, export -ID, and the type is action. Okay, so we can see that's the connector, and let's actually save it to our connectors directory. So let's see, this is the alert SIM. Okay, so alert SIM. Okay, so we'll save it like that. And let's get the other one as well. This one over here. Let's grab the ID. Let's export this one as well. This ID, and the type is action, connectors, alerts, general. And at this point, I think we can go ahead and export the rules. So I can grab the rule ID from here if I can find it. But if I can't, then we can look through here. I have this rules find, I believe. Let's see if this will actually give it. So this, okay, this might be kind of extensive. So I'm just going to cheat because either I click through it from here. So let's get this rule. Let's see if this will actually give us the rule. VI saved objects, export. Is there a rule type here? Alert. So we're exporting an alert. Export, the type is alert, and the ID is this. Let's see if we get something. Okay, great. So we have the rule. So I will save this under rules. And this was the what rule? Oh, WP outdated plugins, right? Let's see. Outdated plugins. Yes, that's the rule. All right, so this saved objects export, we just exported a rule with it. The other one, so this is where it's confusing. This is exported as a rule, but this is exported as a detection engine. So if I click here, right. So it's let me just go to here. So just because they're both listed on this page here, it doesn't mean that they are both rules. This one is a rule. This one is a detection engine. So we use saved object export to export this one, but we can't use saved object export for this one because this one needs a different script. This one requires detection engine export. Okay, so if you even look at the API, so this one exports from here. This one exports from here. They're two completely different objects, but that isn't quite clear because you can see them both on this one page here. All right, so let's export the detection engine. I believe we need to look for a rule ID, not this regular ID up here. Let's see if there is one. Let me look for rule ID, rule. Okay, so maybe we don't need to do that. Let's take a look here. I have a detection engine find. Let's see what we get here. Okay, so it's quite a bit. Let's actually try it with the ID. I will come up here, grab this ID. Actually, let's take a look at this again. Export. I am looking for, actually, I am pretty sure it can't just be the regular ID. It has to be a rule ID, but let's test this. Right, it wasn't found because it's looking for a rule ID. Oh, did I copy it? Yes, I did. Copy. Wait, how come I can't copy? Control C. Right, so it's missing, couldn't find it. So I know we need the rule ID. So I'm going to do this detection engine find again, and we will pass it through JQ to make it a little bit more easier to read. And now I need to look for the rule ID in here. Oh, it might be this one. I'm just going to copy that first, just to be sure, or just so I remember it. Yes, I think, yeah, this is the ID, and this is the rule ID. So this is the one we need. So let's try this again. There we go. Now we actually get the rule, and we can save this to detection engine. And this one was called the host files modified in the JSON file. There we go. I'm keeping this rule as in a separate folder called detection engines as opposed to the rules folder, just to really remember that detection engines are a different type of resource compared to rules. Okay, so we've exported the connectors and we've exported the detection engine and the rules. So I'm going to come back over here and I am going to try to delete these connectors. And I'm going to delete these rules as well. Delete, where's the delete button? Here it is. Okay, let's just hit refresh for a moment. I'm going to go to connectors here, hit refresh. All right, they're both gone. So let's try re-importing those right now. I'm going to go to the setup directory and let's make a copy of the rules. I'll just call it r.sh, make a copy of detection engines. I'll call it d.sh, and make a copy of the connectors. I'll call it c.sh. Oh, actually connectors, I think we can import everything. Yes, these are the only two that we deleted. These are the two that we want to import. And for detection engine, the only ones we want to import are the ones that we just deleted. So host file changes like that. And for the rules, we only want the outdated plugins one for now. All right, so let's run the connectors first because you need those before you can actually import any of the rules. Now let's run let's import detection engines. Okay, so I think there are no errors, and let's run the rules. Okay, let's hit refresh on the connectors. Great, we've got them back. Let's hit refresh on the rules. Great, we've got these back as well. So at this point, I think we've basically learned how to export every resource we need that's really described in the step 2.x here. Let me just double check quickly. Yes, we've learned how to export data views, connectors. Okay, we've connectors, dashboards, data views, detection engine, mappings. Mappings we don't export. We've handcrafted those ourselves. We've learned how to export rules, and for users, we also handcrafted that ourselves, which means I can tear everything down and just re-import everything. We'll tear down the connectors, dashboards, data views, detection engines, and rules, and then we'll re-import all of those. So let me go over here, back to here. Let's delete our rules. Delete these ones. And then connectors, let's delete these. And I might as well delete these indices as well, because our step 2.x script should recreate those. I am going to keep this one. This wasn't created by our scripts. This looks like it's something done by the beats. So let's delete these. Let's go to our data views. Let's delete the ones that we created, which were these. And I think it's just those two. Delete data views. Let's see if there were anything else. We should delete this one too. And so we've deleted connectors, data views, indices. I think that's it. Let's take a look. Connectors, dashboards. We should delete the dashboards that we created because that can be recreated as well. Delete. All right, and let's, I'll just delete these files. Let's do a git status. And in here, so from in here, I think we can reset all of these because these were things that we've done, and maybe I might still have some typing mistakes in them. I just want to restore them to our version, or the version that's under the master branch. And the other reason we want to restore to master branch is because each one of these have unique IDs. And these IDs are actually referenced in my teardown script a little bit later. So if we want to just undo everything, I can run this one teardown script and it'll delete all the indices. But you can see here, we explicitly mentioned the IDs of the data views that we are deleting, the ID of the dashboards we're deleting, the specific ID of the rules that we're deleting. So I think let's reset all these. Oops. Okay, check out, I am on the master branch, yep. Let's only make changes. In fact, let's make restore everything. Okay, and now I should be able to go to scripts, and run the step 2.x. All right, everything is in there. So now if I hit refresh, I should see our WordPress dashboard again. Great, there might not be any data recently because it's been a few hours since I've last recorded. Here, let's go even further back, 15 days. Oh, nothing. Oh, I know why. It's because we actually deleted the indices, so we have to repopulate these. So we will do that in a moment. Let's just check if the rules came back. Good. We have all the rules that we got from our original demonstration. And if I look at my index, yes, the indices that we expect are all here again. And data views, they're all here the way we expect it. In fact, I should take a look at the rules again. And let's just take a look to make sure that the connectors and the actions are in place. Yep, the connector is there and all the actions that we want are all there right now. So let's discard the changes. So we successfully executed this to repeat all the steps of creating the data views, connectors, dashboards, rules, and everything else that we need to get this whole platform up and running. So let's take a look at the rules again, and let's just take a look at some of these definitions now that we understand how they are made. So if you look at this antivirus rule, pretty straightforward. We're looking at the clam scans data view, and if the field infected files is greater than 0 and we get more than one result after within the hour, then we consider this rule true. Right now our indices are empty, so that's why this won't return anything for now. So in a moment we'll just repopulate our tests with some actual data. This rule will run every 30 minutes, and whenever an alert actually happens and we get results, we're going to throw it that alert information into the alerts general index, and we're going to use our standard template like this. What differentiates this index record from let's say the disk usage, and just so you know, here, let me take a step back for a moment. If you look at this rule, this rule, this rule, this rule, and this rule, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They all load their alerts to the alerts general index. The only thing that differentiates between each of them is just what this alert type value is. For disk usage, I put disk_usage. For uptime monitoring, I use alert type uptime. And for, let's say, WordPress plugins changed, I use plugins changed. But everything else about this document uses the same variables, or mustache variables, or the Elasticsearch rules variables. That way one index can hold many different types of general alerts, but we can just use Logstash to filter, or when Logstash is getting information from the index and forwarding to our email, we basically just toggle or filter the appropriate alert type based on this alert type field. Okay, so that just simplifies our code a little bit. So having said that, now I'll come back to this rule over here. And yeah, so pretty straightforward. So every time we get some alerts, throw into alerts general, use this document. And if we look at disk usage, it's a similar format. We're going to look at the metric beat data view, and the rule that we're going to fire, or the query we're looking for, is when the disk usage is above 50% and we're interested in only this server's, this device name or file system name, which actually is going to be different for everyone. So you're going to have to modify this. If I go to, let's say, let me just go to the first WordPress server. All right, so we want to monitor this disk. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in here. And if you want to monitor more disks, you can just put round brackets around this and do an OR statement and add more disks. Like that. Copy, like that. And maybe this one could be B. Anyway, you can play around with how you want to construct this query. I'm just giving you a starter to work with. Okay, so I'll keep it simple, back to something like this. And yeah, run once every hour, and That's pretty much it. So I'll press save on that one. And you'll see with uptime monitoring, when I edit the rule, we're looking at the heartbeat data view. And if the state.down is true or greater than 0, we consider this alert active. And then we send this document to our alerts general. We already looked at outdated plugins, except the one that I've imported might be slightly different. Let's see. Okay, so compared to what we did a few minutes ago, I've just changed the time frame to search once per day. We don't need to be up to speed on outdated plugins every minute or every 5 minutes. I think scanning for outdated plugins once a day is good enough. And if we look at plugins changed, so this one we didn't talk about yet, and we're gonna look at the audit beat data view. And if someone has installed a plugin, what normally happens is that the plugins directory will have new files. So what I'm doing with this query is that if AuditBeat is sending me an event that is of the type file integrity, and the file path that was changed is anything under the WP content plugins directory, then I know that someone has been modifying plugins on that WordPress instance. So that's what this query will do. And I want to be notified every 15 minutes. So I'm going to scan every 15 minutes to know if plugins have been changed on any particular WordPress website. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's what each of these rules will do. Oh, actually, I have to talk about the detection engine. So we've already talked about host modified. I don't think there's anything different between this one and the one we actually made. I can't edit it through here. I actually have to go over to security rules to inspect the details of this rule. So if I go here and I click on this one, so I don't think I've made any edits here. I think the only thing I may have changed in my in this file is the schedule in which I run it. Right. I believe the original was it runs every 5 minutes. I've increased it to once every 10 minutes. I don't think we need to be as frequent about monitoring host file changes. And I did that really just as an example that you can to show that you can edit a duplicated rule. Sudo is modified. You can see here, this query is saying that it's reading from the audit beat index. And if there's been a file change to this file or this file, and it's not done by this, and it is not process.executable with these conditions, then this is considered true. In terms of the schedule, I think I may have altered the schedule as well. I did not alter this, but I probably altered the schedule. And we're going to load the alerts into the alerts-SIEM index, which follows the same structure as what we did with the original rules. I have one alerts-SIEM index, and that will capture the alerts from all three of these rules. And the only difference between each of them is, let me see if I can open them all up. And let's hit edit rule settings. Now let's take a look at the actions. Edit rule settings, look at the actions. Edit rule settings, look at the actions. Okay, so what will be different between all of them is simply the alert type and just an email intro that I want to put into the actual email. Every other field, I believe I've kept consistent. Yep, just the email intro and the alert type is different. Email intro and the alert type is different. But every single one of these documents, I will get all the hits. I will get the rule name, the link to that rule, the query that was used in the alert, any additional parameters, and the date that this rule was run. Those will be standard across each one of these. So that's how these rules are like. I should mention that this rule here probably won't fire because we've now installed fail to ban. Let me see. Fail to ban. Yes, fail to ban. And we already have an SSH, let's see, a fail to ban client status SSHD. You can see okay, that's pretty interesting. So you can see that this jail has a rule that is more restrictive than this rule here. So this rule is saying wait for 10 failed attempts followed by 1 successful attempt, and that we will consider a success. But I believe based on our fail to ban rules, we have something more restrictive where I believe after just 5 failed logins, then fail to ban will automatically reject that IP address. And this is one of the ones that appears to be some spammer trying to attack our system. And therefore, fail to ban will fire before this rule will fire. And you can always modify this behavior later on to whatever you feel is suitable to you. But we can take a quick look. I think if we look at some of the default settings, so there is an SSHD jail here, which you can see here. And it's gonna, because we don't specify the ban time or the max retries and such, it'll just use some other global setting, either defined in this file or other places within fail to ban. So I'll speak to that more when we do a more deep dive tutorial series on fail to ban. So that's just to let you know about this. You can either if you really want to test this failed SSH or this brute force SSH attack alert, maybe be less restrictive or more restrictive here, or disable fail to, or systemctl stop fail to ban for a while, and then you can test this rule out. All right, so that's how all these different rules are working together. So with that said, maybe we should try to populate this dashboard again. Okay, so I think we can definitely do the fail to ban one because we have something here. And actually, I'm curious if there's anything from the WordPress jail. I'll just hit refresh for a moment. Okay, so we've populated this one again. Let's try to get some WordPress plugins in here. I will maybe go to this var www web 1 and let's go, actually, let me go up one directory, web 1 wp content, the plugins evermite.last ping. Let's delete that last ping for all of these. In fact, maybe I'm going to put one more out-of-date plugin in one of these websites. Maybe I'll do it from the other server. All right, so give me a moment. I'm going to upload an out-of-date plugin to, let's say, Web 5 maybe. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, in Web 5, I've placed these 2 other plugins in here, which are pretty old. So that should generate an alert of some kind. So now let's actually delete the last ping file on some of these servers. Okay, do that for 5 and 6 as well. And 6. So very soon, our heartbeat uptime should ping these plugins. And when that happens, we should see something up to date over here. Sometimes you might see this warning initially, but I think if you just hit refresh, it may reload itself. And there we go. Okay, so we see things from Web 1, 2, and 3. Now we'll just see if 4 and 5 and 6 come through. All right, looks like we're seeing the plugins come through. This one has 1, but Web 5 seems to have 2. Let's click on this arrow. Right, so it's reporting on actually 3 out-of-date plugins. So we know that works. Now let's also send a Clam antivirus log over here, and I will go to one of the servers. So maybe we'll do something from the second server. Let's go to Clam, or actually, where was it? In here? Right. So I could do a scan right now, but just to get things up and running, or just kind of get the demo going quickly, I'll just cheat and modify this file. And let's just send that along. And maybe I will, oh, it's probably because the timestamp in the scan.log in this vi log, scan.log, I have a feeling it's because this date is a bit too old, which is fine. I think that means all we have to do is search a longer time frame. Oh, anything? Nothing yet. So maybe, oh, because of this, let's close that. There we go. Now we have some records coming in here as well. And now, just to make sure emails and everything still work, let me enable all these rules and just try to fire some of them. Maybe not all of them will get triggered because I may have overlooked some scheduling and timestamp information. But I think, as you can see from our original demonstration, the very first video, you can always follow that to make sure every rule fires the way you expect it. So I'm just going to run all of them. Run, 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 run this one, run, run, and run. Okay, and let's go back to our Docker project. Let's enable SMTP. Enabled. And that should cause Logstash to run every minute. So let's Docker compose up build -d. Or maybe I should have done a Docker compose down first. Docker compose down, and then bring it back up. And once it's up and running, we should start getting emails in our SMTP server. So I'll pause until this is up and running. And I just remembered that we probably should change our Logstash schedule to run every minute, so we don't have to wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or an entire day. So I'm going to run this use debug schedule, which is a workaround. It's basically a hack to the situation I described in my demonstration video, where Logstash variables can't seem to handle default values, at least not when run through Docker. So I'm just gonna do this. Docker restart wp logstash 01. Let's just restart that one. Okay, and we'll wait to see if new emails come in through our inbox. All right, I didn't get any emails until just now. I found that I had to repeat my steps again, maybe just do some scans and send them over. I took down the WordPress, the Apache server on one of the servers. I removed the .lastping file again from some of our WordPress websites, and I edited the host file again, and I edited the sudoers file again, and now you're starting to see some emails come through. I think sometimes when you start the rules, that it might need a little bit of warm-up time, and maybe we'll perform some of our actions a little bit too quickly before. But now you can see the emails come through. Yep. Okay, yeah, this is looking like what I expect. So that basically covers email alerts. And I think with that, we've basically covered all 8 episodes now. If there's anything that was unclear, just ask some of the questions in the video comments below. And if there are really good questions that I feel weren't addressed properly in my videos, I'll create a final video that's more like a Q&A to answer those remaining questions.